if I tell you that, you've got an invoice that's past due and, we're not going to load your truck again until it gets paid, you're going to respond very differently than if I ask you for $500 in Apple gift cards, right? Like, I mean, it's just, we don't even, the red flag doesn't go up as quickly, right?
Joining us today is Ben Wilkins. He is a cybersecurity principal engineer with the National Motor Freight Traffic Association, and NMFTA recently releasing their 2025 Trucking Cybersecurity Trends Report. Ben's joining us today to kind of weed through some of that and figure out what all of that means. And Ben, thanks so much for the time today. And I guess I'll just start first and foremost. A cybersecurity principal engineer. Tell me what the heck that is and what you do at NMFTA.
Yes, it's a bit of a mouthful. Really, it means I get to kind of get into the weeds of cybersecurity research, best practices, kind of the emerging threat landscape, and then look for ways that either impacts or can be applied in the trucking industry. So really, the core mission here at NMFTA is to take the research that we're doing and the existing best practices that are out there and develop some education and some resources specific to the trucking industry and really make it relatable. Because cybersecurity and trucking aren't historically like, good bedfellows, right? So it's kind of a different language. Trucking, we've got our own ecosystem, our own, language and terminology. Cybersecurity is the same, but it's a very different set of terms and expectations. And so trying to really map those two together is really what it's all about.
Well, and so many folks too that have been in the trucking industry for so long, very set in their ways. And as they try to adopt some of these new technologies, obviously a huge part of your job is figuring out how to bridge that gap between the two.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I've seen it from both sides because I actually started in transportation many moons ago as a driver myself and sort of progressed from there through a lot of different roles in the operations and dispatch area, and then migrated into IT, and that turned into security, and that turned into some other functions within that silo. But it is you hit on something where we're not, as an industry in trucking, we're not really quick to change unless we have to, right? We want things to be done the most efficient way, and the most cost effective way, right? And often cybersecurity is seen as something that gets in the way of that, something that slows us down, something that costs a lot of money. And so we're really focused on trying to flip that paradigm and help people understand that a lot of the cybersecurity best practices are actually they're practices. They're free things you can just do. They're behavioral changes, right? So being aware of the risks and really educating yourself about the risks, that helps it translate into acceptable frames for the trucking industry.
Sure. And I guess as we dive kind of into that cybersecurity trends report that the National Motor Freight Traffic Association just recently put out, one of the first things that trend report mentions is something that, quite honestly, isn't something new. It's phishing. And that report says that 2025 will see significant increases in the
Yep.
efficiency and accuracy of those attempts, according to NMFTA. Why is that the case, and what can carriers do to kind of safeguard against it?
So yeah, that's you're not wrong. Phishing has been around since email, right? It's not a new thing. What has changed though is the emergence and the ease of availability of these large language model generative AI. We joke that the phishing emails used to have, they'd have bad grammar, poor spelling. It'd be about some long lost royalty in a foreign country is reaching out because they need you to send them $1,000 in Amazon gift cards, and they'll give you $5 million for helping them, right? I mean, it was so obvious. Those tells are gone. What we're seeing is these tools allow, they can be from a foreign language native speaker, no knowledge of trucking or transportation or rudimentary knowledge at best, can craft a grammatically correct, perfectly worded, believable email that's relevant to somebody in the transportation industry, uses the right slang. They know about, the terms for, they're talking about reefer loads, and they're talking about, cross docks and things like that a normal threat actor wouldn't have thought of, right? And they're even able to match the tone and the sentiment of publicly known officials in a company, right? So they may take the recordings of or transcripts of talks that a CEO or a CTO has given from a trucking company, and they'll word an email as though it's believably written as though it's that person, right? So then it's sent to all the people in that company from their CTO or their CFO asking them to do something. And the odds of that being successful are so much higher than the traditional, click here to watch a funny cat video kind of, Hail Mary pass that we used to see. So that's really why we're going to see a continued increase in the next year. These campaigns are getting a lot more sophisticated.
And
We also talk a
I guess that's something that I hadn't really considered it. And we talk about, trucking kind of being very, very ingrained in their ways that, when you hear that lingo, when you hear somebody doing the trucker speak, you're more apt to believe it to be a real thing.
absolutely, absolutely. If I tell you that you've got an invoice that's past due and we're not going to load your truck again until it gets paid, you're going to respond very differently than if I ask you for $500 in Apple gift cards, right? Like, I mean, it's just we don't even the red flag doesn't go up as quickly, right? And there's also we mentioned in the report there's this thing we call it delayed phishing. That can be a little bit kind of muddy to try and understand what that means. But that's another thing that's not brand new, but we're seeing it a lot more where because email security is getting better, right? The filters are getting better, more of the spam is getting blocked. What we're seeing is these malicious emails are crafted in a way where the links are actually clean when it's sent to your email. The email security filters will actually navigate out to those links. They kind of it's called detonating, but they go out to the link, they check the link, and if it looks malicious, they block the email. Well, these links aren't malicious when they're checked. It's after they've first been checked that the malicious payload is then added to that link. So it's already passed your filter, it lands in your inbox, and then it is malicious when you click on it. So that's just something that it's a little bit of a we're playing the whack-a-mole game still with how to approach those, but really teaching people to be extremely careful around what they click on in their emails.
Well, and I think certainly it's obviously that cat and mouse game where the bad actors seem to get better with the new technologies faster than the legitimate actors are, and then you play that catch up game, and then as soon as you get hip and to the scheme and figure out a way to beat that, well, then they're right back over on top of you. So it's a back and forth that you
Yeah,
definitely have to track. And I did want to talk a little bit about that here in a second. But one of the things we talk about as we're discussing the cybersecurity trucking trends report with Ben Wilkins of NMFTA, something that goes hand in hand with those phishing schemes is cyber-enabled strategic cargo theft, and I cover cargo
100%.
theft for Landline. Both CargoNet and Overhaul in 2023 reported record numbers of cargo theft that
Mhm.
year. Recent reports now from cargo theft show those numbers were once again surpassed in 2024, and the consensus seems to be that it's a trend that's going to continue into 2025. And obviously, strategic cargo theft is now starting to play a much bigger role in that. First and foremost, from your end, what is driving the increase in that specific kind of cargo theft?
So I think it's twofold. I think that there's an obvious situation where these criminal organizations have realized there's a bit of an Achilles heel in our industry, right? They've figured out effective ways to steal freight. And it doesn't have to be backing your truck up to the load of TVs and fill in the back of your truck. It's rerouting the shipment to a warehouse where they can get cross-docked and resold, and it appears legitimate. You might even use a legitimate carrier to do it, right? So they've figured out some tactics that they're having success with. But I think also it's the again, some of those same tools that are being used for ransomware as a service attacks or traditional cybercrime are really effective to facilitate cargo theft as well, stealing credentials, getting access to your account on the load board, spinning up a fake load board and getting traffic directed there from phishing campaigns. Those types of techniques are, again, we see the speed and the sophistication of these attacks being boosted by some of the newer technology, the newer tools. it's easier and the bar of entry is lower for a criminal to set up one of these schemes. And we haven't built in the guardrails yet in our identity vetting and our, our kind of our verification checks in the broker carrier relationship and that process in a way where we have any uniform controls over, are you the driver you say you are, right? You sound legitimate on the phone, but then you turn around and pretend you're a broker on the next phone call, and you're double brokering or something like that, right? So there's two pieces to that equation. I think it's they're having a high rate of success, so they're making a lot of money, and the tools are easier for them to use and more accessible. So
I
it's a
think
tough
you,
situation.
I think you kind of hit on it too, as we haven't really built in those safeguards yet. And now, the legitimate carriers are playing this catch-up game of trying to figure out how to get in front of these, because you're right. It's getting to a point where it looks so legitimate, and the ease of having the strategic cargo theft, it's so easy for some of these criminals to pull off that you can do everything in your power and you can
Mhm.
still wind up being a victim. I guess, not just totally calling it a lost cause, but at this point, are there certain best practices that owner operators and small carriers can do to protect themselves from some of that strategic theft?
Absolutely, and I'm in a little shameless self plug for NMFTA here too, because you gave me a great opening for it. We've actually just released some guidance on this specifically. So cybersecurity best practices geared at the small carriers came out in January, also applicable to an owner operator. But we're releasing in February a specific set of what we're calling the core controls, right? So it's sort of a really condensed checklist of the high value, low cost things that you as an owner operator can do to do this exact thing that you're talking about here. Protect yourself against not just cargo theft, but cybercrime, identity fraud, credit fraud. They're all part of that same attack style, or if you will. So as far as some practical things, it really comes down to know who you're dealing with. Know um, how long has that broker been around? What does their online footprint look like? Do you have a reason to suspect that maybe this is somebody that's, a brand new broker, doesn't have a big footprint, or have you looked up online? Are there negative reviews about not getting paid or scams that they've done? So that's an easy first step to just do a little bit of research on that. Um, and also things to be aware of, a last minute change in destination is a huge red flag. I know it happens, for legitimate reasons, shipments get rerouted in transit and all that, but that should get your spidey sense tingling, if you will. It's one of those things that's often done where the shipment is a legitimate shipment, but it gets rerouted to an illegitimate facility. And that's where the actual theft is going to occur. You're going to deliver that load in good faith, but you're actually delivering it right to the threat actor, right? The criminal. And then that's when, whoever owns the load who was waiting for it on the other end isn't going to receive it. Claim gets filed, and it makes you look like you were complicit in this whole scheme potentially. So that's, really being aware of the techniques that are being used to do this, is step number one, and vetting vetting your business partners carefully.
We'll definitely make sure we point our readers and listeners to that direction when that drops in February, because that certainly sounds like some good information for them to have. As we're talking with Ben Wilkins, he is the cybersecurity principal engineer with the National Motor Freight Traffic Association. The association recently releasing their 2025 Trucking Cybersecurity Trends Report. A lot of great information for anyone in the industry to digest and consider. And, one of the things we had talked about was AI and the implementation by AI and some of that back and forth between the bad actors and the legitimate ones. And obviously, it's increasing and impacting nearly every aspect of our life. Also true in the cybersecurity world, even more so. But it does seem to be kind of that constantly evolving landscape. They get better on their end, then the detection gets better, then they
Mhm.
figure out how to beat those systems. What does that look like in 2025 in your estimation? Will it be the good guys or the bad guys winning that AI fight?
I like to think we're starting to get up on the lead lap a little bit because when these large language models kind of dropped, when ChatGPT came on the scene, there was kind of a like, okay, the playing field has changed. What do we do now? How do we protect against this? We didn't even know what kinds of threats we were going to be protecting against necessarily. We've seen throughout 2024, we saw a lot of AI involvement in both cybercrime and phishing to facilitate cargo theft and all of that. And I think that the detection side is getting better. We're learning how to leverage those same kinds of pattern detection and sentiment analysis and all these types of different tools that AI allows us to do. We're leveraging those in our security solutions in a more effective way. And we're starting to kind of also adjust the training we're giving to our employees on what to look for. The scams have changed. The scams aren't as obvious. So our education needs to get a little bit more nuanced, but I think we're seeing that trend start. And I would like to be confident that in this next year, we're going to see the defensive side gain a little bit more of that upper hand. Not to say we're going to solve it and the threat from AI is going to go away. That would be a fairly brash statement, but I think we're figuring out how to use it for the defense pretty effectively.
And one of those things I know, at least from a cybersecurity standpoint, when we talk about devices that truckers use, electronic logging devices are a huge concern for truckers when it comes to their security because it does hold so much of their information,
Mhm.
be it their DOT numbers or anything along those lines. And so, but the case is though that a lot of those ELDs that are installed in these trucks, they may be several years old. They might not be the newest technologies and the
Mhm.
newest updates. Are we
Mhm.
seeing more of a shift from ELD manufacturers to build in, and I think you guys use the term have cybersecurity baked into those devices as they come? And are you seeing some of those older devices also kind of come in terms of what we now know as best practices in 2024, 25?
Yeah, so a significant part of our research and the work that we do with OEMs and the telematics companies is actually around this very topic, right? So there's the devices themselves, which are often now just a tablet like you would use for anything else, right? So there's some security controls that you can put in place around that device and around the way that device interacts, maybe with the Wi-Fi networks. Don't join the public Wi-Fi at a truck stop from your ELD tablet. Like, but again, there are some legitimate concerns about the actual communication between the device and the telematics providers systems, right? So we are looking at that, and we have a team of dedicated to the assets and the telematics side, looking at those specific concerns and working with the OEMs to really help kind of define like what is the standard that we need to have these devices meet for security? What are the risks that we're finding in devices that are out there that need to be addressed? And it is, to your point, that it's not necessarily, particularly if you're a small operation, you can't go to a brand name telematics company and demand a change the way they do security. That's just not going to work. But if enough people are saying in the industry saying, no, we need better security in these devices, and these are the risks, and these are the devices that we will purchase with this kind of security, then as an industry, we're going to be able to force the OEMs and force the manufacturers to meet a security standard or a certain level of security. And in the meantime, it's about carefully vetting the suppliers you choose to buy these devices from, which platforms you'll interact with, and then maintaining good cyber hygiene practices around the handling of the tablets themselves and your credentials to your portal if you've got an online portal. We don't want it to be ELD1 as the password to get into it, right? You want to make it, those same best practices. So
Sure.
not to
Ben
dodge your
Wilkins.
question, but
Ben Wilkins, our guest, he's a cybersecurity principal engineer with the National Motor Freight Traffic Association. Again, we're going through some of the findings for their 2025 trucking cybersecurity trends report. And Ben, the last one I've got for you, as you guys keep that information coming throughout the year for everyone, that all culminates in October at the 3-day cybersecurity conference held in Austin, Texas. I guess tell me a little bit about that event and why it's so important for those in the industry.
absolutely. So it's a great opportunity to not only meet and learn about cybersecurity and share experiences from, whether it's large carriers, small carriers, owner operators, security professionals. But it's also a time where we will bring in, we this last fall we brought in members from the OEM community. We've brought in members from government agencies and large fleets, people who have been through cybersecurity breaches. Really learning from a shared experience, because there's this unfortunate kind of taboo around talking about it. When you suffer a cybersecurity incident or a victim of cybercrime, people don't want to talk about it. They're worried about their, that may damage their reputation. But one of the best things we can do is we can talk to each other about it and share lessons learned and what worked, what didn't work. So it's a great opportunity for that. And we do some hands-on training. We walked through some business continuity tabletop exercises of, how do you keep your business running while the proverbial is hitting the fan, and how do you recover from the incident, not just preventing it? Because the fact of the matter is we can do prevention all day long, but things still happen. Incidents will still occur. And you also want to be able to be prepared for that and have a plan in place for that. So really excellent opportunity to share those lessons learned with the community.
Well, he is Ben Wilkins. He is the principal cybersecurity engineer or cybersecurity principal engineer. We'll get those in order.
Either one works. Either one works. He's security guy. That's fine.
He is a cybersecurity guy. He's got advice nearly as great as that beard of his as well. So, Ben, thank you for your time today, and appreciate it, and continued success, my man.
Thanks, and feel free to send your listeners to the website. We'll be dropping the guidance for owner operators specifically February 13th. So.